11 million of them died when Carol screamed in episode 2. They didn't cry. Zosa nearly died saving Carol from a grenade in episode 3. They didn't cry. Carol has rejected them, hurt them, and said no 1,000 times. They didn't cry. But in this scene, for the first time, we see tears streaming down their faces. Real tears, human tears. So what happened in this moment that finally broke them? Let's talk about the most devastating scene in Pluribus. Here's what we need to understand first. Carol has figured something out. The hive mind cannot lie to her. So when she asks Zosa directly if there's a way to reverse the joining and Zosa stays silent, that silence is the answer. There is a cure, but Zosa won't tell her how. So Carol does what Carol does best. She plans. She steals sodium thiopental from the hospital pharmacy, a truth serum. She tests it on herself first, and under the influence, every filter disappears. She admits she's attracted to Zosa. She cries about Helen. She reads her own writing and thinks it's good enough for a movie. The serum strips away everything, all the lies, all the defenses, all the walls. If it worked on her, it'll work on Zosa. So Carol takes Zosa outside in a wheelchair. She secretly injects the serum into her IV bag, and she waits. Here's what makes this even more tragic. When Carol took the serum herself, she became more herself. Raw, honest, vulnerable, human. She cried about Helen. She admitted her attraction to Zosa. She let down every wall. But when Zosa takes it, she becomes less herself, cut off, alone, terrified. The serum doesn't just reveal truth, it reveals the cost of separation. What happens next changes everything. Carol asks Zosa about the weather. Simple question, what's the temperature? Zosa's first answer is perfect, 27.778 degrees Celsius, not about 80 degrees. The hive mind's precision. That decimal point proves she's still connected, still accessing the collective's processing power. But then Carol asks about the wind direction, and Zosa stammers. She struggles. She can't remember. She reaches for the data and finds nothing, because she's just a human again. And humans don't know the temperature to the third decimal point. The connection isn't just slow, it's dying. And Carol sees her opening. She starts pushing, demanding, how do I reverse the joining? Is it a chemical, a medicine? Tell me, Zosa, tell me what it is. And she's trying. You can hear it in her voice. She's fighting to speak. She wants to answer, but she can't. And that's when the others arrive. They come from everywhere, surrounding Carol and Zosa, and they start chanting, please, Carol, please, Carol, please, Carol. And as they chant, tears stream down their faces. Then Zosa collapses, cardiac arrest. So here's what I think happened, and this is where it gets devastating. What if the truth serum didn't just make Zosa unable to lie? What if it severed her connection to the hive mind? For the first time since the joining, Zosa was alone, completely alone. Just her consciousness, no collective, no 8 billion minds, no shared experience, no connection. Just Zosa, individual, isolated, trapped inside her own head. And she's terrified. Think about what that means. She hasn't been an individual in weeks. She's been part of something vast, connected, never alone. And suddenly, in an instant, all of that is ripped away. She's in solitary confinement inside her own skull. She's trying to help Carol. She wants to tell her. But maybe without the hive mind, she doesn't even have the answer anymore. Or maybe the virus is still blocking her even though her consciousness is severed. Either way, she can't speak. She can only cry. These are her tears, Zosa's tears, individual, human, terrified tears. And the hive mind? They feel it happening. They feel the connection breaking, like a limb being severed, like losing a piece of themselves. They sense Zosa being ripped away from the collective. So they panic. They rush over, not to attack Carol, not to stop her from hurting them, but to stop Carol from taking Zosa away. Please, Carol doesn't mean please stop hurting us. It means please don't take her from us. Please don't disconnect her. Please don't make her alone. Please don't break our unity. And the tears on their faces aren't just about pain. They're about loss. They're watching one of their own being torn away from the collective, forced into isolation, and they cannot stop it without violating Carol's agency. And that's the tragedy, because even while Carol is torturing them, they still won't override her consent. But here's where it gets even darker. Here's the part that should make us all uncomfortable. Carol's entire mission is built on one principle: agency, choice, consent. She will not be forced, she will not be changed, she will not let anyone take away her right to choose. She screams it at them. I have agency, you cannot interfere. But what did Carol just do to Zosa? She drugged her without consent. She injected chemicals into her body without permission. She severed Zosa from the collective without asking. She screamed at the hive mind that they couldn't interfere because she has agency, using their own respect for consent as a weapon to continue the torture. Let me ask you something. If violating someone's bodily autonomy is wrong when the aliens do it, why isn't it wrong when Carol does it? The virus changed humanity without asking. Carol calls this evil. Carol changed Zosa without asking. And we call this what exactly? Necessary? Justified? Self-defense? Or do we just not want to admit that our hero is doing the exact same thing as the monster? Earlier in the series, Zosa asked Carol a question. You want to change us too, don't you? Carol had no answer. Because Zosa was right. Carol wants to reverse the joining. She wants to force billions of people back into isolated consciousnesses. She wants to change them all without asking if they consent to being changed. How is that different from what the virus did? Look at this scene again, really look at it. Who's acting human and who's acting like a machine? Zosa is crying, begging. She desperately wants to help Carol, but physically cannot. She's suffering, she's dying. She never asked for any of this to happen to her. Carol is cold, calculated. She planned this, tested it on herself first, executed it methodically. She's using chemicals to extract data from a subject. The infected one is showing raw, messy human emotion. The human one is acting like a scientist experimenting on a lab rat. So who's the monster in this scene? The one crying and saying please? Or the one with the syringe? Here's what makes it even worse. The hive mind doesn't attack Carol. They don't forcibly stop her. They don't grab Zosa away from her. They don't override Carol's agency to save themselves. They beg. Even while Carol is torturing one of them, even while Zosa is dying, they still respect Carol's consent more than she respects theirs. Think about that. The monsters won't violate her agency even to save themselves. But Carol, she'll violate theirs without hesitation. And Vince Gilligan, the creator, he knows exactly what he's doing. He did this with Walter White in Breaking Bad, slowly, methodically turning the protagonist into a monster while we're so busy rooting for them that we don't notice it. Until we do. Until we're watching Carol torture someone and we realize, oh God, are we the baddies? So why do they cry? They cry because Zosa is being severed from them, ripped into individual isolation, experiencing a terror they all share through the connection. But more than that, they cry because in this moment, they realize something that breaks them completely. No matter how much they love Carol, no matter how much they help her, no matter how much they respect her agency, she will never see them as people deserving of the same rights she demands for herself. To Carol, they're not beings with autonomy, they're problems to be solved, obstacles to be removed, data to be extracted. The virus decided humanity wasn't worthy of choice. Carol has decided the hive mind isn't worthy of consent. And the cycle continues. The tears aren't just grief for Zosa, they're the death of hope. The realization that love and patience and respect will never be enough. Because you cannot reason with someone who has decided you don't deserve the same agency they claim for themselves. That's what makes the scene so devastating. It's not about aliens versus humans anymore. It's about how the fight for freedom can turn you into a tyrant. It's about how the victim can become the abuser without even noticing. It's about how easy it is to justify cruelty when you're convinced you're the hero. This is the moment Pluribus asks us a question we don't want to answer. If Carol wins, if she reverses the joining, if she forces billions of people back into isolation without their consent, is that really a victory? Or is that just another violation? just another monster wearing a human face. The hive mind is crying because they finally understand. Carol will never stop, because she's convinced she's right. And nothing is more dangerous than someone who believes their cause justifies any method, even torture, even violation, even becoming the very thing they're fighting against. That's why they cry. Not because they're weak, but because they see what Carol has become. 11 million died when Carol screamed and they didn't cry. Zosa nearly died from a grenade and they didn't cry. But watching someone fight so hard for freedom that they become a tyrant, watching the victim become the abuser, watching their last hope turn into just another monster, that broke them. So here's the question I can't stop asking, and I want you to sit with this.
If you were Carol and you believed you were fighting for humanity's freedom, would you have done anything different? And if the answer is no, does that make you the hero or just another virus?